an invitation.
Dear God, we come to you this evening. We again thank you for this opportunity in our nation together and freedoms we have to discuss business and to work things out. We thank you for that. If you would be with us in this meeting tonight and give us wisdom, help us as we work through and make decisions. If you would be with our city, if you would bless it. Lord, we pray for the safety of all of our employees. We especially pray for our police and fire as they interact with some things that are so much rougher than we're used to. If you would keep them safe. And again, we thank you for this town. In your name we pray. Amen.
Chief, you want to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have some light over here, please? Thank you.
Clerk Faulkner, will you have the roll call, please?
Steve Arnott,
Here.
Mike Scipio,
Here.
Doug Fleshman,
Here.
Greg Hudson,
Here.
Greg Wolf,
Here.
Connie Thompson,
Present.
Jim Hughes,
Here.
Linda Baldus.
I'm here.
Quorum being present, I declare the March the 11th, 2019 special meeting of the Dunbar City Council in order. The actions taken at this particular council meeting are all centered around the Fireman's Pension Fund, and Councilman Fleshman will be recusing himself from voting and participating in the discussions, and that he is a recipient of the current pension fund. So the outcome should have an outcome bearing on him personally. With that in order, the first item on the agenda is action to close the existing Fireman's Pension Fund, which is the alternative plan. So it's open for discussion, comment, and action.
Mr. Chair, based on our February 7 meeting, there may be some questions still, but I think we've pretty much all come to the conclusion that when we get to number B, we may have a choice, but on number A, I think we're all realizing we're in a situation where we can't keep the alternative plan, or else we'll eventually cease to be able to fund it with its 7% a year increase. At least that's from recollection from all of our discussions at the last meeting.
Yes, all of the actuarial studies that the city's been presented over the last year, and we basically started these discussions in 2017, and the prognosis hasn't changed much as to the current plan, which is the alternative plan. And within a short period of time, we're going to be in the $800–900 million range that we would have to be paying into the fund in order to keep it solvent. So we don't have those resources available to us to continue to maintain the alternative fund plan, but there are options available to us as discussed in the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion to close the existing Fireman's Pension Plan.
I'll second.
There's been a motion by Councilman Scipio to close the existing Fireman's Pension Fund, the alternative plan, seconded by Councilwoman Thompson. Any further question or comment?
If I may make a comment for clarification. We use the word closing, which is proper, but just so everybody understands, while that's closed, that means no new hires go in, close that way. There will actually be still contributions made. If you looked over your packet, the way this is set up, there'll still be a small portion of the actual fireman's deduction each month goes into that. A along with part of the optional funding, the funding from the state tax, and then it'll also grow in interest. So there'll be assets deposited into that account. There'll just not be any new firemen added to that plan, and we cannot withdraw from that plan until it's fully funded from there, just so everybody understands, because that word closed can be misinterpreted.
Well, yeah, it's close to new hires.
Yes.
And depending on which option that we choose, the proceeds that are currently on deposit at the time of the closing of that fund will be reserved until the final years of actuarial analysis to when there's adequate funds in there to pay whoever is retired and receiving benefits under the alternative plan at that time. So that was probably about year 35.
35.
Yeah. So that's a long time out before anybody would be receiving any payments out of that fund once it's closed. Any further question or comment? All those in favor of closing the existing fireman's pension fund alternative plan, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. And would note that Councilman Fleshman did not vote in the affirmative or negative. Next item on the agenda is selecting either the conservation or optional plan to replace the existing alternative plan being closed. And there again, this has the existing, for the new hires, will not be going under either one of these options that are chosen. They will go under the state municipal police officer and fireman pension retirement fund if this action continues to proceed. So only the existing firemen that are in the fund, the alternative plan, would be covered under the conservation or optional plan. Pretty well covered. Okay. Any further discussion as to
Mr. Chairman, just to refresh your memory as well, on the last meeting, February 7th, we looked at the difference between the conservation and the optional. And conservation, if we looked at the optional, and you have your chart there, we would immediately in the next fiscal year increase $300,000. It's mandatory. Now we hope to generate not only the roughly $500,000 it would take for conservation, but beyond that, generate other funds through later discussions. But those give us some leeway to build them up. If we go to the optional plan, there's no options for our side, and immediately you're hit with $370,000, and quickly approach $800,000 while we're still around here. If you look at the conservation, it's set up where we'll need to come up with $500,000 a year, which is within $20,000 where we're at now, plus an emergency fund. We talked about those options as well. That's just a reminder to everybody. Those are our two routes. The optional, if we could do it, is obviously the best choice. But from our last discussion, I think most of us have come to the understanding that don't know that the optional is realistic. Even conservation, we'll have to find other incomes, but they're manageable incomes. With optional, coming up with $250,000 instantly per year extra, maybe more than we could even imagine without doing some major source of revenue beyond municipal fees, beyond data max, etc. So that's just a refresher to see if everybody has the same memories from that meeting. Okay.
Yeah, I think on the conservation, you see a gradual increase, or on the other one, it's just a big jump all the way around. And if we take the other one, then we're gonna have some problems somewhere, but somebody will suffer.
any further discussion or comment relative to the two plans? Being none, I would call for a motion on the selection of the plan.
I'd so move that we select the conservation plan to replace the existing alternative plan that's being closed to new hires.
Second.
Yes.
There's been a motion by Councilman Hudson to choose the conservation plan to replace the existing alternative plan being closed. Was seconded by Councilman Scipio. Any further questions, comments? Being none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Record should note that all voted in the affirmative, with Councilman Fleshman abstaining or recusing himself. Action, the next item on the agenda is action to approve all new hires being placed in the state municipal police officer and fireman's pension firefighters retirement system.
So moved.
Second.
As previously stated, the new hires would be going into, by taking the action of closing the plan to new hires, the new hires would be going into the state approved, similar to the peers group, which means that retirement fund would be transferable to any other department should you choose to go somewhere else. There's been a motion by Councilman Scipio to approve that all new hires be placed in the state municipal police officer and firefighters retirement system. Was seconded by Councilman Wolf. Any further comment or question?
I
Yes,
have a question. The first page of the second set of papers we got, it starts at the top, retirement benefits. There where it says concurrent employment.
Oh, this is a method for calculating benefits and so forth
Oh,
under
okay,
the existing plan.
okay. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Being none, all those in favor of the action to approve all new hires being placed in the state municipal police officer and firefighters retirement funding system indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Record should note that all voted in the affirmative, with Councilman Fleshman recusing himself. You all are welcome to say anything if you want.
Public comments coming.
Well, I mean, during this whole process. Okay. Don't let us move too fast if you have some concerns. Okay, the next item on the agenda is approval to deposit all proceeds generated from the Datamax contract to the special account set up with the state treasurer designated to the fireman's pension fund payments for the first 2 years of the new business being added to the B&O tax books.
So moved.
Second.
I want to have a discussion.
There's been a motion by Councilman Wolf to approve the deposit of the proceeds from the Datamax contract to the special account set up with the state treasurer designated for the fireman's pension fund payments for the first 2 years of the new business being added to the B&O tax books. Seconded by Councilman Scipio. Discussion.
I just wonder why are we limited to the 2 years? Why can't it be dedicated more than just for the 2 years?
May I speak to it?
Yeah.
It's a 2-year contract with Datamax, so that's all we can promise. for one thing. On the practical side is, like we discussed at the last meeting, after 2 years, that source will diminish very fast. So when the 2-year contract's up, if we do renew it, we could also say the next contract would go to the fireman's extra fund. That's not a problem. But it also reminds us that this is not our solution. This is a Band-Aid for today, because the way that system works, once everybody, right now, since not everybody's in the system, it's working for this man and for the cities. But once every city gets in it, then it takes him about 24 months to catch up on everybody. And once it's caught up, then it all slows down, because then we would already be, once they're caught the first time, then they're in clerk's records. And so the next time, after 24 months, each person, after they're caught, so to speak, they're on the hook with him 50-50 for 24 months. After that, then it goes back to our clerk's office, and we would receive the revenues as just part of our annual budget then, as part of our B&O revenue. So this extra source of revenue, that's only 2 years. So that's why we want to use this, but we'll have to come up with another revenue stream beyond this.
I think hard and fast reality of it is, the reason we receive a large amount of money initially from a business is they go back 5 years. So what you end up with, whatever you get from business, you can divide that by 5. And that would be probably the average annual income. So if you got $25,000, this first hit, then you would anticipate only getting $5,000 for every year thereafter. So that's not going to be nearly enough money to repair the dam. I mean, the only thing we're doing at this point is putting a plug in it. We're not doing a repair. So we'll have to, as the councilman indicated, we're going to find another solution in addition to the data mines. So, I mean, we're going to have to watch this for the next 2-3 years and stay on top of it, or we're going to end up having to do what we're facing with the alternative plan. We're going to have to start cutting money from some other budget to plug the hole.
And I'll just be honest with y'all, I think that's my biggest concern. It took us 21 years to get this far. It's taken me 4 years or more to get us here where we're at today. And I'd hate to think that after 2 years, we would go backwards, not continue to go forward.
And that's
And
why,
maybe I'm just being negative Nelly, maybe I'm being Debbie Downer. I'm just telling you the facts, and it just, gun shy of committing, just saying 2 years and then not having a plan, or not knowing there's a plan that we will continue the progress.
this is not, let me try to make sure I'm clear as well. Tonight, all that we're essentially doing is setting everything up to go into the other plan. This doesn't solve our revenue source. We'll have to come back in the next meeting or the next meeting very quickly to come up with another revenue source, because then no one intends this to be the solution as far as data banks. That's not our solution. We want to cash in on it, but it's not our solution. So we'll have to, whether it is municipal fees or something else, we'll have to come back to that within the next 30 to 60 days. I mean, to come up with a long-term funding plan. Because even if you mentioned 2 years, we have to have an answer long before 2 years. You know, there has to be a solution much sooner than that, and that's another source of long-term dedicated revenue, not just this one time.
It could be too that this is money for this data box for 2 years that's not planned in our budget.
That's, yeah, it's found money.
It's like you win the lottery. You won the lottery, you got, you published your clearinghouse, showed up on your door, got extra money, you got the guy, the Mustang, the great house. I understand the concept. I'm just saying that I'm just concerned, you know, and I can't imagine that anyone else up there on this panel that has known the history of it wouldn't have the same concerns. I'm the only one voting.
But I think this isn't just a 2-year contract. It's 2 years for each business. So next year, if they bring in 5 new businesses, then that's 3 years from now that revenue would be, that, you know, that they would get 50% of the revenue, and then we would start. So, you know, if there's enough businesses, they will continue to sort them out and look for them. But there again, I think it's going to be like Google's and Atkins. If you look at their reports, they started off gangbusters and they got most of the easy stuff, and it's gone down to probably about a third of what they did originally. So I think the same thing is going to happen with Datamax. They're going to come in, take the big hit, and then it's just going to compress down to probably being almost insignificant. So there again, we can structure this however we want to.
And we ourselves just have to promise that to immediately come back with other funding, because you can't do all of them one night legally either. We're bound on, we can't solve all the funding issues in one night because you have to have a hearing, et cetera, for those kind of things. So what we have to do tonight is solve the paperwork side so that the clerk can go ahead and get everything set up for July 1. But then we have to commit to come back and sort out the revenue source side. And again, there may be something beyond this, but the most obvious that the mayor shared and we've all talked about would be something in the municipal fees. Again, we're not voting on that at all tonight. It's not legal to do that, but I'm just saying that's one option. But tonight is just getting everything lined up so the clerk can get all the paperwork and everything's ready July 1. And any new hires will go in, all that stuff's done. And while we've got free money, tonight we take action on it, but that's not our solution. We've got to come back with some other long-term source of revenue. We can handle the first few years on this one as well, but we don't want to wait that long. We need immediately, in government meeting, maybe 30, 60 days. There is no media, but governmentally speaking, immediately come right back with the funding side of it. So you're correct, Connie, this does not solve the funding side. We have to come back to that.
Okay, as long as we don't drag our feet and we don't go into the next administration, I'll be happy and quiet for a moment.
Same here.
I'm just being honest with y'all. Honesty is the best policy.
I was reviewing our records from previous meetings, and it takes approximately 3 months from the point that we start to end up having everything done. So we'll be getting with Blair and working out the details. Well, anyway, we have a vote on it. We have discussion. There's been a motion by Councilman Wolf to, we've already gone through all that. We've had discussion. All those in favor of taking the proceeds from Datamax contract and depositing into a special account set up in the state treasurer's office designated to the fireman's pension fund. Payments for the first 2 years of the new business being added to the B&O tax books indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Record shows that all voted in the affirmative except Councilman Fleshman, who recused himself from voting. Okay.
Can I ask a question? At the current from Ogle, and I forget their names, but that money we've been putting into that separate fund for the firemen, how much is in that at present?
Around about 30,000.
Okay.
Is that correct, Con?
I'm
Last report I saw.
I can go look, but I cannot answer that.
60, 70, but yeah, about 50% of that.
Well,
Or no,
It's
25% of that.
25% of that, but I haven't put the last quarter in there yet.
The last report I said like 30,200.
I handed it out last meeting. I don't have any of that with me. I don't want to quote,
Yeah, the same way as some other medical.
It's dropping, right, every time.
Oh, yeah. First quarter, just give you an example, first quarter, we've got 40,000 from total. The next quarter, 21, next quarter, 12. So
Okay.
this is,
So they get 25% and we get 75%. So you can see that probably the same thing's going to happen with Datamax. You're going to get a big influx, and then it's just going to start trickling down to small numbers, because they already have a hit list of people that will fill the pay initially, and then after that, it's a little bit for the same, would be my guess. Okay, public comments or?
I mean, I appreciate what you guys are doing to close it and, starting with us taking action and getting something resolved. I just see further problems going with the conservative method, but that's just my opinion. I think in 15 years down the road, when we're paying almost $1 million a year, I see problems going, and I don't know what the answer is, but if we can't afford the money now, how are we going to afford it down the road?
Well, we can afford the conservation plan for several years if we can find an alternative source to it. I mean, the reality of it is, I guess, at some point, the city only has certain resources available to it. And I guess at that point, it's whether or not you go to a mixed volunteer professional fire department. We just don't have an unlimited pot of money that we can put it all into this plan. I mean, it's unfortunate that they, for 20 some years, almost 30 years, that they have not honored the commitment the way it should have been with, putting the funding into the system. But Dunbar is not unique in that.
Oh, you're right.
In that area. So, yeah, I think unless there's a council that's as dedicated to looking at the problem and working with the problem 10 years down the road, whoever's left will be sitting here looking at trying to sort through the same laundry list. And, what we want to do is put something in place that will circumvent that to the greatest extent. The conservation plan, in my mind, is financially feasible. And we've talked about, I guess we can talk about it now since it's an action, about raising the municipal fee for the dedicated to the fireman's pension fund solution. That, depending on what goes in there, generates a fixed amount of money without going into the coffers of the rest of the city for other services that the citizens expect. So depending on what that number is, if we act on that fast enough, we can start building up a surplus in that set-aside account that can buffer the hit for the big years down the road. And if that money grows and the state investment pool the way it looks like it's growing, then the increases above the 500, 520, which we could probably sustain for several years, can be offset by the money that's set aside and growing over on the other side when it comes time, when you get to the $800,000, $900,000 a year numbers. Kind of basically the same concept of the alternative plan, but you're not locked in for the 7% escalator every year and numbers like that to make it unmanageable to meet the demands of that particular plan.
What about the sales tax money coming in? I mean, that's generating what, almost 200,000 a quarter?
We've never touched
You all seen our budget. Our budget is balanced. That sales tax is obligated.
So if we didn't have that sales tax past 2 years,
Then you all
Would
would
be
probably be in a
$800,000.
volunteer fire department stage. I mean, everybody else, the money is being spent. I don't know, where you think it's going, but you all seen the budget and it's listed in there. The pay raises, the first year that we had the sales tax, we lost 240,000 of that in pay raises. The next year, we lost another 150,000 in pay raises. Plus, we've had increases in PEIA. We just sustained another increase in PEIA that we're absorbing into the budget without passing it on to the employees. Plus, our liability insurance and workers' comp has gone up. All these things have gone in and eaten away at that 1% sales tax because the other business taxes have been dropping off over the years. So with inflation, the cost of everything going up, salaries going up, and benefits increasing? I mean, it just eats it away.
So right there, in my opinion, you just said later down the road, we're a declining city. We understand that. Most of the state's declining. So we're just kicking the can down the road instead of having additional funds now and more money now put up front. That in 10 to 15 years, when it's higher with a conservative method, more businesses are gone, more population's gone. We're going to be in that same boat again, trying to find money.
I mean, you're going to be at the mercy of the council to fund this for the rest of your life.
That's scary.
Well, but I mean,
That's scary.
but that's just the reality of it.
And that's reality no matter which plan we're in.
I understand that, but there's a reason, out of this new system, there's a reason only 1 or 2 other cities are doing the conservation method. Everyone else is doing option.
I'd like to speak to 2 things, 2 separate items you brought up. On the 1%, you guys know that I'm honest with you. And the chief was here for the finance meetings. We worked through the budget. That was a long evening, but you know, we went through every single line. And we went through every single line one by one. And it does take, with the pay raises the last 3 years and the new contracts, and just like you said, with the medical insurances and all those things going up, it's essentially taking all that to keep it balanced now without making cuts. And that's, I'm being honest with you, and the chief was there to watch that meeting as well. Knows that we went through every item, and there was no shenanigans played with anybody. It was just a fair meeting. So it is the reality now. A few years ago, if we'd have chosen to earmark that and not do raises and things, that's a different story, but that's not the way it happened. And most involved in that process are not here to answer for anything tonight anyhow. So that's about the sales tax. On the choices between alternative, conservation, and optional, theoretically, I 100% agree with you. The optional is without question the wisest way of stewardship to go. Reality speaking, though, we have 3 choices. We can stay in the alternative and go bankrupt. We can, what we have to promise tonight, to come back and look at ways to generate some extra revenue, possibly, just again, we're saying possibly because there's no action, but possibly through municipal fees or something to generate where we can milk out 75 to 100,000 extra a year to go in with the Datamax, with the Ogilvy funds to make an extra cushion so that it's there. The third option is obviously the best option on paper, but the difference is so extreme. We don't want to stay number 1 because we're going bankrupt. We can handle it. It will cause a raise somewhere. We'll have to raise some money somewhere to manage what we're going to. But to go into the third one, the only option we'd have 2 options, either to do some, not a minor raise, but some major significant raise, and there's not many things the city can raise because we're not allowed to actually tax the citizens. So we're very limited on what we can raise, and the reverse then, to shave off $300,000 out of our budget to go towards that, the increase in the first year, that's 5%. So if you do 5%, even if you just say across the board, that means no increases in pay plus shaving 5% off of every department. And that could be, then you have to start hashing out, okay, do we no equipment or do we lay off people? I mean, that's just the reality of it, to come up with 5% beyond our budget in one fell swoop. So that's our 3 choices. We had to make the choice. We didn't have to, we delayed it 21 years, but realistically, we had to make a choice to get out of the path towards bankruptcy. But I don't know that we have any possible way to go to the other plan with our scenario. I agree with you, it's without question the best plan.
Yeah, I didn't hear any protest when you all asked for another $99,000 in your budget this year, and we gave it to you.
You took so many.
Nobody said they got to put it in a pension fund.
We got it back this year. We took some money out for the funders and we put it back in there.
If you want, I'll take care of that. Are you all done?
I appreciate what y'all are doing, but I think this is, alternative funding part 2.
Yeah, I don't have an answer. I mean, I just see future problems coming. I do appreciate what he's doing, and there's no doubt that it needs, something's gotta be done. We've got to close alternative funding. There's not a question or doubt there at all. It scares me to death 10 years from now. But, I mean, I guess we'll have to do what it is. We'll have to just face it and go with it. I mean, I don't know what the answer is.
Just like 10 years from now, 934,000 of the alternative plan, $543 for the conservation plan.
Right. So you pay
I
them,
mean, it's big time money.
But in 20 years, when the city has declined more, it's $900,000, and we don't have as many businesses as population.
Wants to say it could turn around. I'm not gonna bet money on that.
Yeah, I mean, but,
I mean,
anything
With
can
the
happen,
sports
anything's possible, right?
I mean,
But-
maybe the Lord will come back, we'll have to deal with it.
that's all.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a couple things. Thank you all for hearing fire department's plea about this problem. Thank you for acting on it. I don't want to get into all the particulars that's why they're here about funding methods. I'll be gone before there's a problem, so I'm not concerned about that as much immediate. That funding being taken out of the fire department budget last year, put back in, no complaints about that. You all want a fire department or not? That's the end of that argument. You can't, and which is going to lead into my next suggestion to you all, and actually a request. And I know you can't do it right now, but when you go to set this up to where the city starts paying the pensioners, just like basically a paycheck coming out of the city's fund funds their money. I'm going to request and recommend that you separate that from the fire department's operating budget.
It's part of your budget.
Well,
It's always going to be in your budget.
the reason I'm saying that is because, not this group, but at some point down the road, monies within that, I have learned, can be moved around. And they would have to be real careful after all of us are gone. They'd have to be real careful about stripping if something came up short somewhere else. It's just a recommendation.
Can I speak for clarification? I think what you're saying, tell me if I'm wrong. I think what you're saying is simply, yes, it's in the budget, but it would be, and I forget, I don't have my budget, what numbers the fire and police are, their main.
It's like 700.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, but the fire and police pension would be a separate number category. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm suggesting.
It's under every department. The retirement is listed under every single department's budget.
And now, are we going to have, and that's going to lead into my next question, are we going to have two of those now?
Yes,
Well,
just like the police
Just like
department
police.
has.
okay.
Well, you actually, you just have one. Police has two.
Yeah, we would have two going in. And like I said, yeah, everybody in this room is in agreement and we're in unison, but we can't control what's going to happen 15 years from now. And so I guess it's sort of a question and a suggestion. Can that be separated?
So you're asking if we have a fire budget and a police budget, because they're in the same boat for their operating, and then a separate line for pensions for those two. Does the state have
It is
that?
separate.
I mean, a separate number, and I don't know if the state
We have,
allows.
I don't know either, but you gotta go by
The state does have codes.
They
on
control,
numbers.
the state controls all the code numbers.
Even if it's a separate budget item,
Right.
people can deal with it as a separate budget item and eradicate it.
Sure.
I mean, if you're concerned about somebody making a stupid decision, I mean, they can make it,
I know what
no
you're
matter
saying.
where you put it in the budget.
I know what you're saying. This is a suggestion.
The only thing that we can do is the fund that we're setting up on the side can be set up in such a way that it can only be used for one purpose. That we can guarantee.
That,
And then the monthly checks that come out, I mean, we're trying to discuss amongst ourselves, how that would happen. One of the recommendations is to see what BB&T would charge if we would write them a check each month to issue the checks to your retirees the way it is right now, so there wouldn't be any confusion with that. So we would just write a check to them, then they would disperse to the recipients. But the separate fund, we would keep over the side, and you can pretty well earmark that, just like you do with bonds and bond proceeds and so forth like that. I mean, they can be structured to where they're protected with, to the greatest extent possible. Now,
Anything can be undone was done, is the unfortunate
Well, I mean,
side. I'm trying to.
there is no magic bullet for this thing.
Right. And like you said, I'm not worried right now. I'm worried 10 years from now, 15 years from now, after I'm retired. And most of our guys are either retired or getting ready to retire.
You like to move back from Florida?
Yeah, I know. That's the unfortunate side. But I'm trying to think of it from a perspective that is to get it, because it's going to be something new for the next people and the next people and the next people. And I guess you all have already been doing it with the police, where you're seeing 2 different pensions going on, 2 different things. And it's something we have to keep explaining. I was thinking, if it's a separate line item in the city's budget, it's line item number 1, police pension, fire pension.
Yeah, but it's just covered under each department.
Sure.
So, I mean, the
And
same
like I said,
thing, the building inspector, he has a retirement account, line item, the clerk's office, the mayor's office, there's a retirement line item under each and every, under each department. So it's not something you can hide somewhere they can't find in the future.
I wouldn't suggest hiding it. It'd be the last thing I suggest. I'm one of these people who wants to put it out there in public, put it out there. But
Yeah.
I want to remind everybody, the fire department did not create this problem.
Oh, we know that.
Sitting here in front of you did not create this problem. You all didn't create this problem. So we're all on the same page. I think we're just a little frustrated that we can't do, there's nothing we can do. But when you start talking about, and I predicted this will happen, and I'll go on record and say right now, it will happen. It may take 10 years, but at some point, the way this will be funded is we'll be laying off firefighters. Y'all take me on record. That's exactly what's going to happen. That's why I think this is a bad idea to not have a good funding source before you get close and change it.
I mean,
But
what is the funding source?
I don't know.
I
don't know.
Could I say something? Sure. I think you'll find city of Dunbar per capita is by far, we have the least amount of money per person to spend of all the cities in the Canal Valley, by far.
We can argue that.
You made a statement that, and I think everybody in this room wants to have a fire department. And you said, do we want one or do we don't? I think everybody wants a fire department. And then the last thing I want to say, it's not just your department that's suffering or looking for funds. And I believe, I'm going to ask Connie to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the fire department draws the largest percentage of our budget than any other department. So we're trying to help you. Somehow we got to figure out how to divide.
I'm not arguing you a bit. I appreciate it. I just, when I start hearing volunteer department, I'm gonna tell you, volunteer fire department, you know what that is? That's a lack of fire department. That's what that is nowadays. Unfortunately, I don't want to see the city in a position where when you start doing that, you're in a position where you're not providing fire protection, and you're not providing rescue, you're not providing, and I'm worried about, I won't be here when this happens, but I'm worried about it from the city standpoint. Once you start down that path, it's a dangerous road you can't come back from. And so we're frustrated. For something we can do it. And there's really nothing to do.
We only have so much money. The city
But here's the
has
thing.
a budget.
Okay, the average pensioner, what are you going to be paying him a year? So you strip away the operational cost of the fire department, you might pay for 1, 2 maybe. And that's what I'm saying is that I guess what I'm trying to do is for something we can do to help, and for something we can do to suggest and work with you all, we're willing to do so.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm really trying to get at, is we can't look at just volunteer or cut money here, cut money there. Cut money out of operational parts of the department, then you have a dysfunctioning fire department. So then all we're doing is really robbing from here to give to here. We're just not doing that.
You're cutting services on your citizens.
Well,
Is
yeah,
there any restructuring of the shifts that would help at all? I'm just asking.
no, we're
I
at
don't
minimum.
know.
We're at minimum.
We do.
If you cut anything from what you have right now, you're below minimum standard.
We've never had an increase in manpower since the sixties. We're running 4 guys when they were running 200 calls. We're still running 4 guys as we're running 1,200 calls a year.
And just to touch back, I don't mean
Now go ahead.
just to touch back on the budget issue, now, you know, if we go to the conservative method, and God forbid it happens, but let's just say 3 firefighters go off on a disability, now that is extra revenue you have to create.
Right.
And if we go to the optional method, then it doesn't change. You pay that exact amount every time.
No, it actually gets recalculated then too.
That's
Oh, yeah.
not the way I understand it.
Oh, yeah, it does. It changes, the actuarial analysis
The actuarial
changes every single year. So each year, say it's projected that in the next 5 years, nobody's gonna retire. So this year is based on that projection of when the retiree's gonna be. If you upset that calculation, next year, that calculation is revised, showing that you had 4 people go into retirement when you weren't scheduled to. So that whole payment thing goes.
That's correct, but at the conservative method, you're gonna pay it right then and there. It's not gonna be next year. If you go to conservative, and this guy goes off on disability, now you're paying that money that next month. You're not waiting until the next actuary comes out. So if you have 3 guys go off at $30,000 a year, I mean, that's an extra $100,000 a year you're gonna come up with right off the bat. And that's, I mean, I'm getting off topic, but what I'm getting at is, from a budget perspective, if that happens, are you gonna take more money out of our operating budget to try to come up with this?
I can't speak for something that hadn't happened. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, I don't know what the circumstances are gonna be if that would happen. I mean, that may happen at a time that we've had a huge, big business influx and we're flush in money and it's not gonna be an issue. The other thing is, does that council want to say, well, we just won't hire 3 replacement firemen? I mean, I can't speak to that, as to what happens at that particular day in history.
Can I ask from our side, then when we come back for our next finance meeting, that we have at least a discussion item to start the process of reviewing the municipal fees in connection with this pension plan, just at least to get the discussion started on the funding.
Yes, Connie's been working on an analysis and we're trying to get that honed down. That our collection rate is not nearly as bad as what we've perceived over the years. The reason the records have looked so bad is we've allowed a lot of uncollectible debt accumulate on the books, which makes the books look worse. Based on what we're looking at right now, we're about a 90% capture rate on the bills that we send out on a quarterly basis. Now, there again, we're trying to, it's something new we're doing with the computer program. Maybe it'll say that's a wrong number, maybe it's more, maybe it's less. That's what we're trying to, before we come to you with the final thing, we want to make sure that our query of the computer is accurate. And we send out approximately 3,600,
37, close to 37.
close to 3,700 municipal bills a quarter. And now some of them, like Roxalena Hills Apartments, are only for $25 because they only pay police and fire. They don't pay the $50 for garbage. So there's
Because manpower, one of them other people picks up the garbage, not us.
right. And you got the Oaks, Roxalena Hills, and Grandview that have third-party garbage collection. So the only thing they pay is the municipal fee. So, you know, in that 3,700,
They're not all $75.
they're not all $75, but they are all $25.
Which is the part we're looking at.
That's the part that's the part we're looking at. So we roughly have 3,700, and looking at it, we probably have about a 10% loss. We're sending out anywhere from 300 to 500 delinquency notices a quarter, of which we're saying there's probably 300 or so that are become delinquent that we turn over to Atkins and Oogle for collection. So we're dogging them as hard as we can dog them. I think we've got a pretty good capture rate for no more teeth than what we have in trying to go after it.
Clerk, would you feel comfortable having that by the 18th next meeting or the first meeting in April to have that for us? So we could start with an educated
Right.
understanding.
I'd say by the first day,
Okay.
with everything, budgets and all, try to get it together.
And it's our busiest time, so we'll ask to have that on the finance discussion of that with her report at the first April meeting. I don't have a April. We can speak to that. You know what the first Monday in April is? Okay. The first Monday in April meeting. Because one, we'll have to start on this. And then also to firemen, it's not that we have a plan.
It's April 1st.
April, okay, April Fool's. It's not that we have a plan anything, but by law, we can't in something like that, we can't do tonight. We have to have discussion first, then action, then public hearings. So it's not that we don't have a plan, but we can't, by state ethics laws and things, we can't just do it all tonight. I mean, while we could, it was easy to grab the data max tonight, because that doesn't require any hearings, anything like that. We've already had discussions on it in previous meetings 4 times. So that was easy, but.
Not that I got a quick question, because I got no feeling against them, but is the user fee even something that's been tossed around at all?
Like Charleston has?
Yes, that's specifically earmarked.
We don't have enough employees in Dunbar.
I didn't.
The paperwork and stuff associated with that would be astronomical to send the bills out and try to collect them.
Not enough influx.
Y'all be the
And
one
they
paying.
were working.
Y'all be the one paying.
The city
I
Work.
don't know. And that's okay. It's going in my pitch, and I don't care if they. I didn't know, I'm just tossing some things, trying to give you all a little bit of input, show you that we are interested in whatever we can do.
What about the vacant property policy fee program? Is that actively being worked on, or can we work on that
You want to
more?
hire some more people for us? I mean, it's not been active work on.
I'm just asking, Connie, because that is,
Yeah.
that is a source of revenue, if it's actively worked.
But no, it's not been actively worked.
And it is a source, but even if it was 100% efficient, I'm not against us getting more efficient, but even if it's 100% efficient, I don't think it would be what we're needing for this problem.
But it would solve the 2 problems. It would work on getting some of the vacant property addressed, and it would also give us some source of revenue.
Do the businesses pay any extra for fire fee?
Just the flat 25,
I
just 25 per quarter, isn't
25.
that correct? 25 per quarter.
You gotta be kidding.
I don't think change
There's
square footage.
That's what there's, I looked in.
That was supposed to be changed years ago, square footage.
I looked at 2 or 3 towns, Dale square, but I'll be honest with you, that's what I do for that, I run property management. I've got 155,000 square feet of nitro. I pay for $9,000 a year, just in a fireman's fund.
That's right.
And they may respond twice a year if alarm goes off. But that's every year. Putnam County did the same thing, but Charleston's doing the same thing based on square footage of businesses, and they're all offices. So we need to look at it. Second, when was the last time did we ever have a municipal fee rate?
About 4 or 5 years
was
ago.
fine.
About 4 or 5 years?
It's 5 years.
Yeah, it's
It's been longer than that.
We haven't raised it since I've been.
Me neither. Haven't raised it since I've been here either.
I thought it was raised $25.
Yeah, it went up.
It went up.
It did go up.
Yes, it
It's
was.
been more than 6 years.
50 to 75.
Yeah.
Raising the acres.
Yes,
Some of that was.
it's in my second term,
Some of
so
it was garbage.
between 13 to 17.
Well, there's some different people run their stuff, different towns run their stuff, like for instance, if they're landlords, the businesses pay one fee, based on square footage. Landlords that have all their rental properties pay another fee because they're renting everything out. They have to take the property, fee. For people that are sitting vacant, they still have to pay their property. Then they have a residential fee that's based on the square footage of their home. Then they cap it at age 65 at like $25. But up until they turn age 65, it may be 50, 60, whatever it is. But again, it's something to look into because what we're paying in nitro down there is absolutely absurd. And you can't do anything out of it. They have 2 or 3 fire stations down there also. $9,000 for 100, that's just that much. And that's not one of the big buildings down there.
Businesses just pay 25?
That's, wow.
I thought that was changed years ago, I really did.
Every year.
It's probably something just talked about.
Business pay 85. Now, where the difference is, I'm not sure. There's $10 more than.
Let me throw a,
Maybe the 35, goes into the farm, please.
let me throw a weird wrinkle on the table. What's wrong with soliciting the community volunteer fire department people out in Powder Mountain for $100 a year to help pay for the firemen that go out and fight their fires? I mean, we spend a lot of resource going outside the city, and the city receives no revenue from that source.
I probably shouldn't let you.
Okay. So we do send guys out there,
Yeah,
but they have also bought the past 3 fire trucks that this city has, and a lot of our equipment, that this last 4, I'm sorry. That's an apples and oranges comparison to me.
but I mean, we've never seen any apples and oranges. I'm just saying, why not send a
You got,
petition out to the residents out there? I mean, we're talking about Dunbar.
They're paying for the truck.
they pay for our fire engines.
A lot of
The
equipment.
commissioners, right now, they come to the commissioners. We're saying,
Right now, they're being taxed at a rate, and then that rate countywide is being dispersed back out.
Right.
We are allowed to solicit for donations, but we can't use that for a labor force or any type of benefit. It has to be in equipment.
I mean, but we've never seen any kind of financial report or anything about,
We do a state audit every year.
nobody has ever, I'm just saying, nobody from the fire department's ever presented anything that I remember to the city council as to what the revenue stream is and where that money's being spent and where the correlation is between,
At your all's request, we'll be more than happy.
I mean, I'm just looking at all funding sources.
Sure, we're getting $20,000 in county tax money, and so is every other volunteer department in the county. The truck payment's what, 28?
$28,000.
We're paying out more for the truck payment than we are the county tax rate already. We get state funding, but where we're a combination department, we're a rarity, we only get half of that all the other departments get. So when you combine that and plus with the new equipment, as I mentioned in the budget, the city's budget doesn't buy new equipment, it just maintains. We use that to buy new equipment and things with. That's where it's going. We'd be more than happy to show you. You let us know, ask me, or we'll show you.
Request that, did they quit voting?
I've never seen one.
All you gotta do is request it, it's public record.
We're audited every year, and we'll be more than happy to show you where it's coming in and where it's going out. Now, the donation side of it, to get back to your question, just like everywhere else, the donation side of that used to be at 32% is well below 20, probably near 15, which is pretty common about everywhere. So even the donation stream is just And what you're seeing is now you're seeing the volunteer departments, doing photo drives, contracting with companies like that to get that gap filled back in. So I don't think, given the area and given the population, I don't have a number, but I don't think it would be a number that is even worth looking at. I don't think it would generate enough money. The population is so small in that little area outside the city. And out of those, like, it's about 15% of what actually donates to us. I just don't, I mean, more.
Do you
If
see
it
that?
was $100 versus 25 that we request now, we might see, $1,000, $1,500 increase, maybe.
So do you send them letters on a yearly basis? How do they know to donate?
We send out the donation letter every year. We explain to them what equipment we bought,
Oh,
what services are getting provided. And it's like municipal fees. It's hit or miss.
The only difference is we can't force them
Yeah.
to make a donation. We can't.
Do they donate pretty much every year?
No. It's hit or miss.
It is.
That area is very,
Well,
for lack of a better term,
it's poverty. It is a poverty
poverty-stricken area. A lot of people don't have insurance on properties out there.
That's what I mean. To answer your question, Mayor, I think you'd be looking at less than $1,000 increase there. I really believe that. I don't disagree with you. It's a good idea.
I mean, I'm just
What about the
thinking
program?
about all the options and so forth out there.
What about the program about going to back on the auto company insurance and trying to collect from there?
That's something I'm still working on, but we have to work on that at the city level. And recoup operational costs is what I'm looking at, or create an actual new equipment fund with it, whichever way. That's something I'm still working on, and there's a lot of gears in it based on different cities do it different ways. And it kind of really comes down to you all, with the limitations within the law of how much you can bill the insurance company. I'm still waiting on a couple of documents so I can bring you all enough information where I feel like I'm educating myself before I try to share it with you. But I really believe that's going to generate, that could be 10, 15,000 a year. I mean, I don't know.
That would have to be, by code, they're restricted to equipment, not to your salaries and pensions.
Correct. That's, well, what it is,
Actually, it would just go into the general fund, and you can put it into whatever you want.
What you're doing is you're spending the operational costs to do it to begin with, and you're requesting reimbursement for those operational costs. Now, what you all do with it, that's up to you all. But there again, you can't. I'm not gonna say you can't, because I don't know what the law is as far as rolling that into salary benefit, but, I am working. I have not dropped the ball. I'm just waiting on.
I just didn't know how far I'm from.
I'm still working. I'm still waiting on some answers. Like I said, each city seems to do it, just that's different. And it really, from what I can tell, it does come back down to a city ordinance proposition where you guys decide what you're going to do, when you're going to bill insurance, what incidents.
So you'll get with Mike, the ordinance committee, or.
So sort of like our escrow or police escrow fund.
Correct.
Well, it doesn't have to be that way. It just, it's, right now, the building inspector gets a notice from the insurance company that if we had a cost, in your homeowner's insurance policy, and the state code sets aside, I think, $5,000 or up to $15,000, that if you can show calls, you can send that claim to the insurance company for going and fighting the fire, and you can recapture that money. That money doesn't have to go into an escrow. This is not a set aside fee. I mean, this is just capturing money that was expended to,
It's operating. You capture your operational expenses.
I did a little bit of research on that particular thing, recapping money from emergency service calls. What I understand is, one thing it cannot be used for salary. Because those men are already working, they're already
Right.
on the call, but the money can be used for everything else.
equipment maintenance, expendable supplies, anything.
I asked for, at our April 1 meeting, clerk, when you have your report, if we could also know of our roughly 3,700 accounts, how many are residential versus how many are business, since we've had the question about
If I can
businesses.
get,
Okay.
if I get that breakdown,
Okay.
truthfully, with the computer system. That's what I'm saying, so, you know.
Yeah, we're trying to be careful in doing the query to make sure that we're getting the right information out, because computers are weird. They answer the question you ask, and whether you ask the right question or not depends on whether the answer is right or not.
I don't know if you can break it down, it will break it down a lot,
Yeah, because they're not listed as different classes.
or different numbers, or,
Now, what we could do is we could look at the number of business licenses as one option, which is easy to do.
I don't know about it, and there again, I don't know if state law allows us to raise business license. Of course, I've been looking at other
No, I mean,
cities that
what-
were all right there line.
You can just get statistics.
Oh, I know.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, we could use that as the number of businesses in the city to see if you did what they were talking about doing, going to a square footage for commercial or business, how many that would impact. I don't think our municipal fees will show that. It would have to come from a number of business licenses. Anything else?
No, that's all I had, thank you. And again, I appreciate you all. We did our department budget, we appreciate you. I know we seem frustrated, but we do appreciate it. We've seen more positive here tonight than I've seen in my career. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Anything? Then we get to go first.
Nothing. You said my name.
Guys, we're gonna look into this again, so got several questions later on we'll bring up.
And I'm just pleased that we've gotten this far.
I'd just like to, thank you guys, and, you know, we are dedicated to trying to fix this, and I think it needs fixed, and I'm sorry, you know, it had been looked at the last 21 years, like when the mayor for attacking it, because you guys do deserve this. I mean, you know, that wreck today, you guys jumped right in there with that gas spewing and didn't hesitate a bit, so thank you for that. But you guys do deserve it.
Just hold our feet to the fire.
No fun. Big trouble for that.
I have a lot that I would like to say, but
You can say it now.
I've said it over and over and over since 1972, and it hasn't done a bit of good. It's fell on deaf ears. So I hope and pray that this administration really lives up to the word and promise to try to do something about this situation. Because this could have been alleviated years ago. And that's it.
Good. Oh, you're done? I'm done.
Mr. Mayor, for the good of the order, if there's no other city business, I move we adjourn this meeting.
Meeting adjourned.
Tell you what, that guy has too many names titles. They're gonna put